Hey, this is Gary, and welcome back to my channel. And in this video, we're going to show you how to make a basic assault game like Space Invaders. In order to do this, we're going to add a GameMap method in our base screen. In our GameMap, we're adding updatables here, and so they will render part of our render cycle for each loop. And then we need to add setting a location with the layers. In sprite update, we need to set the location, including the layers. Then we'll have to update our sprite, set the location, add that method, set it into those bounds. This also affects our actor factory. Our create new actor is now going to take a layer with that, and then we're going to call that new set location with that layer method. And another thing that we're going to add a controlled movement. And this would make it easier for us to control the movement of our aliens moving across the screen, down, and then back across to the other side. And this is a pretty basic movement object. It's extending the base movement. Our handle collision is going to just revert any type of movement that it was doing. The update is just going to calculate the magnitudes and set our sprite location. And we'll add a method to set direction, and this will give us the ability to control our sprites. So we're going to set our width to 800 and our height to 600 for this. And to make our invasion game, created a new package. We'll create a new class for our battle scene. Okay, here we have our battle scene. We're going to set a battle layer. We're going to have that layer 1. We're going to have a destroyed layer. That's going to be layer 0. And we're just going to use that simple sprite map. We're going to have 2 layers. So one thing we're going to need is kind of our aliens. And we'll create a new alien. Need to override our collisions. We need a hit method for what happens when he gets hit, which is just basically going to set it removed. And I'm going to create a class to hold all of our aliens. And this is just going to implement updatable. And we're going to add a start X, an end X, and we're going to add an edge. Start X is going to be the left side, and index is going to be the right side. So these are the bounds on which the aliens will move back and forth. I'm going to set an edge so that I can have it move kind of diagonally. And I'm going to use that control movement to control all of my alien sprites. Create my constructor where I'll create my controlled movement. I'm going to set it a speed of 0.5. And the initial direction is going to be moving east, which is right across the screen. Then we're going to implement our update method, and this is going to be controlling all of our aliens to move back and forth across the screen. In order to do this, I need to know who's first and who is last. So to get our first alien, we're going to loop through all our aliens, depending on the size of the number of aliens we have across. Loop through each row, pull out the I element, depending on where we are. And we're going to look for any aliens that are not removed and are basically less than the length of our screen. And then that's going to return that alien. Otherwise, it's going to return a null. To get the last one, we're going to go backwards. We're going to take the size -1. And as long as we're greater than -1, we will loop, go through our rows, pull out that alien, check to see if he was removed, and the X is greater than 0, meaning that's basically anything that's valid. And we return that one. Otherwise, we're going to return a null. So in my alien troops, I almost forgot this. My size is the number of columns. Then in our update loop, now that we got our first and last alien, and we do a check to make sure those aren't null, and the movement's going to be based on the phase. So for case 1, we're moving to the east, and we're looking to see when he reaches the end X minus the edge. And this is where we'll start moving in that down right direction. So once he hits that point, based on his width, right, we'll change our direction to right and down, and we go to phase 2. Then in phase 2, we're looking to see when that last guy reaches the end X, and then we're going to set our direction to southwest, which will move him left and down. We set our phase to 3. In phase 3, we're moving from the left and down, so now we're waiting for the last guy on the left. When he reaches that edge, that's 15 pixels in from the end, and then we set the direction to left. So he's going to cross the right, he's going to go down at an angle, and then come back at an angle, and then move across to the left. Case 4, this is where he's moving to the left. Now basically, we're kind of repeating the same steps, but we're using the first guy when he reaches that edge from the start, and he's going to move down and to the left, go to phase 5, and then when he reaches that starting point, that starting edge, then he's going to go south and to the right. So now he's going back towards the right, and we go to phase 6. And once that first sprite reaches that edge, then we're going to move east, and we go back to phase 1. So it'll continue to loop through that. Okay, I'm just going to create a class for Alien Troop Builder to build all this for us. Okay, in our Alien Troop Builder, I'm going to set a size. This will be the size of our aliens. They'll be basically in this 25 pixel square, and we're going to have a space of 20 pixels in between them. And we have our create alien troops. We're going to set the number of rows and columns for each of our aliens. And then we're going to have here a difference, which is the size of our aliens plus our space. We're going to use this for setting their locations. I'll show you that in a moment. And then we're going to create a list for all of our alien rows, and each row has a list of aliens. So we loop through each row, create a list for the row, and then go through the number of columns, basically the number of aliens in a row. And we're going to create the aliens, and they're going to be based off of that movement that's in alien troops, which is that controlled movement. That's what we just went through. And we're going to set its location. We're going to do our start X, and we're going to add a difference, time it by the column. And so the first one will just be at start X. The next one will be at start X plus what the difference is, which is that 20. And the Y is also going to be, the Y is our starting location from the top, plus or minus our difference. So we're going down by a difference of 20 and times the I, which is our number of rows. And then we're going to use our battle layer. And so this will space out the aliens in kind of a grid pattern. And then we just add that to our list. And once we get that row built, we add that to our complete list. We set that alien row in our troops. Create the alien. Right now we're just doing a block animation. This can be updated to use an image of any kind. To represent the alien, we'll use a two-way motion. So we have them moving one way and then moving the other. And then we'll have a single motion for when they get shot. We're not using that right yet, but we'll get to that. And then so we create our alien with that movement, and then that gets returned. Back in the battle scene, we create our alien troops. Right? We're going to set our Y location. We use 550. We're going to do 5 rows, 10 columns. And we're going to add the alien troops to the updatables in our map. And then we get our aliens. And for each of those rows, right, we'll loop through them, pull out the alien, and then add each of those as an actor into our map. And then we set that into our game map. Here we go. He's moving across the screen. And he makes it to the edge, minus the X. And then you see he comes back and makes a circle. And we'll go to the other side. Back and forth. And so that's our aliens moving back and forth, just like in Space Invaders. And then I could also do just 2 rows of 6, right? 2 rows of 6 aliens. It'll take longer to get across the screen. And that's my aliens. All right, I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to go into game controller settings. And so I've built out a controller screen. And so what I've got is my list of buttons and axis, and show you the controller that I have. Okay, this is the controller that I have. This is a Thrustmaster, and we have the A, B, X, Y, left controller, right controller, and button controller. And it's also got switches on the back and buttons, and a 1 and 2 button here as well. So here's how the controller works. You have a controllers class built by LibGDX. You can get controllers. This will give you the array of the controllers that are currently attached to one's computer. Using controllers.getCurrent gives you the current controller. And I'll have it print out the number of axis and the max button index. And so just to note that the button indexes are 0 to this number. So if I run this, so it has 6 axis points and 14 buttons. So it has 6 axes. So this is 1 and 2. This is 3 and 4. This is 5, and this is 6 on this side. That's these 2 bottom controllers here. There's 2 buttons up here at the top. This controller has a total of 15 buttons. This is 0. This is 1, 2, 3. This is, I think, 4. This is 5. This is 6. This is 9, 10, and these are the last 4. These 4 buttons. So I created a controller decor so I can tell when the buttons are being pressed. And I'm just checking to make sure that the value for the axis is not 0. And so it will turn it to green when that's activated, and it could be blue when it's not activated. And when you press a button, it'll turn green. Otherwise, it will be blue. And so I create my 6 axis decors and my 15 buttons. So here's these are the buttons down here. These are my axis. So if I use the left axis, you can see it moves the first 2. The right axis, that's the second 2. The left trigger and the right trigger. This is the A button, the B button. This is X, this is Y. This is the button at the bottom, 1 and 2. This is the gamepad going right, down, left, up. And this is the top button on the left, top button right. And then you have the 3 buttons across the top. So 1, this is the Xbox button. It brings up the Xbox screen, but you see that lights up. And then this is the left one up at the top. It's like a menu bar. And so that's basically how the controller works and how you can interact with it. And then back in our game framework, I made a gamepad movement, and this responds to the gamepad buttons, the 4 movement buttons, which form a plus on the gamepad. And so you would enter in those button IDs here and the speed of your movement. I also have it that if you have a specific controller, you can pass that in and it will use that controller. Otherwise, it just use the current controller. And so this is very similar to the 4-key movement. Handle a collision works the same way. The update is just doing a multi-update direction. And the multi-update direction is based on the controller, either the one passed in or the current, and those buttons. It'll move in the 8 directions, north, south, east, and west, and northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. So I updated the shoot 'em up game that I made in a previous tutorial. And so I've updated the ship to take a movement. Before it was just doing a movement based off of the 2-key movement. Now it's going to take that gamepad movement. And so I've set up the buttons as I figured them out, 11, 12, 14, and 13, moving at the same speed. And it's going to use that current gamepad. So back in the ship, I had to update the laser firing. So I have a countdown mechanism in it. So that when it checks to see if the button is pressed, as long as you hold the button, it will basically keep firing. And so I set up a countdown so that you can only fire once every half a second. So I can change that. That's flexible. And so it will always subtract whatever the current delta is in that countdown. So you get your half a second. And then in the laser, what I did is I removed the calling to the super handle collisions. This is because if you don't have a countdown and just let it keep firing, then the laser bullets will collide with each other and you get some odd behavior. Another thing I had to do was add a Y protection. So if you're going less than 5, it'll keep you at the bottom. And I set an upper bounds of 200 pixels. And so you can only go up 200 pixels. Okay, and we'll test that out. We have our movement. It's firing every half a second. Only move up that far. And only go down that far. And I can do it in all 8 directions. And so in the ship, I can actually change this to every quarter of a second. And then it'll shoot faster. And that's how the game controller works. We're going to move from the gamepad to the game stick. So that's the adjustable kind of stick where you can move just a little or a lot, depending on how far you move the stick. And so create a game stick movement, extends the base movement. We're going to have an axis horizontal, axis vertical, the IDs for that, the controller that we're going to use, and we're going to have a max speed because the controller can be sensitive on how much you want to move. So you can either create it with the current controller or you can pass in a controller. Handling collisions, we're just going to move backwards, move the sprite back where it was. And the update method, we're going to get the axis for the vertical, and we'll have to invert that since the game screen starts from 0 at the bottom and goes up. And then the x-axis, we'll get that movement. So we'll get the y and x movement, and it's going to be between 0 and 1. So it's kind of like a percentage of how far he's going to move. And as long as those are not 0, we're going to then calculate its direction based on those two movements. And then we're going to do the max speed times the absolute value of those movements. So now we have a percentage of what our speed is. And so we can only move a little or a lot based on how far you move the controller. And that'll give our X and Y update. And we set those, otherwise those get set to 0. In our controller stick screen, I'm just building an actor using that game stick movement, and going to have the vertical is 1 and the horizontal is 0. That's our game stick movement. I'm going to put him in basically in the middle of the screen. Give it a max movement of 2, and then we're going to run that now. Okay, there's the sprite. He's in the middle of the screen. So I can move right, I can move left, I can move down and up. And then if I only move the stick a little bit, he's going to just move just a little bit. So the speed is variable. and that's the game stick controller movement. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any comments, put them in the chat below. Give this a thumb up if you like it, and we'll see you in the next video.